So we've titled the workshop Introduction to IrisBG, Advanced Collection Management Made Easy. So what we're going to do today is just show you, for those of you who've never seen Iris, we're going to give you a sort of soft start. So we get to get familiarize yourself with the basics with the software, and then we also will have time to show you a few more advanced things, so that you can get a feeling for what Iris can do to make it easy for you to manage your plant collection. Together with me, my name is Havard Ostgaard. I'm Norwegian, so that's why the name is a bit unusual for many. I'm based in the UK. My background is software architect or software design, but I've been working with Iris for the last 12, 13 years and discussed taxonomy and botany on a daily basis for many, many years. And I have my own garden, so I know a bit about plants, but more on an abstract level than plant identification. Together with me here today is Margarita. So she's our community manager, and she speaks many languages, not Chinese yet, but you speak Spanish, French, German, and Dutch, and English.
And English, yeah.
So anybody who feels more comfortable using any of those languages. And then also together with me today is Reinhard from the Hortus in Amsterdam. They are our reference garden in the Netherlands, or in Central Europe. We're going to have questions throughout the session today. So if you have any questions, just bring them up, and then Reinhard might sort of help more in terms of if there's any kind of reference to how they use Iris in their garden. And yeah. So yeah, that was our sort of sentence we put on in the brochure for the conference there, or the congress. And I suppose here we're dealing with already converted people in terms of keeping plant records. Why should I keep plant records? It's quite obvious for many people, but not for everybody. Yeah, we think it's really important, but every garden, I'm yet to meet a garden who don't have to struggle with their resources. Where do you put your efforts? How much people do you have? How much time do you have? So what we're trying to do is to give you a software so you can actually be efficient and spend your resources efficiently and have time to keep good records. That's what that's our sort of, what shall I say, mission, if you can call it that. So that you can have good records and still do that within the resources you have in your institution. So what we're going to do today is to go through some basic fundamentals or terms used in Iris. We're going to show you really basic stuff from the start, and then we're going to go through some normal kind of practices that you have in the garden, and also going slightly advanced with the nomenclature, because these are the things that are very hard to do in spreadsheets or in basic access databases. And then some label management. And then at the end, we're going to also look at Garden Explorer. So if you, we may not have time to go through absolutely everything. Depends a bit about how many questions we get through the day. So I'll do my best, and we'll see. So quickly, I'm just going to spend a few minutes on the software itself. And today we have about 100 plus, I'm not sure how many, but sort of 100 plus in all 5 continents. We're all down here in New Zealand, Africa, up the most northern garden in the world there, Alaska, etc. So it's a good group of people and many different time zones, etc. So the software started in 1996 was the first installation, but it wasn't made sort of available to the rest of the world until 2007. And in 2010 was when the current program that you'll see today was developed. So it's been redesigned many times, or 3 times. So we've had 20 years of thinking behind it in terms of how you make an efficient software for botanic gardens. This map is available on our website, so you can just go there and see and explore. And then if you want to talk to any of these gardens, get in touch with us and we're happy to introduce you to them. Our background is also, as I said, my background is software engineering. Our chief architect, Øyvind, who's based in Norway, he's a taxonomist and software engineer. So we have a lot of the skills needed inside our sort of company. And that's one thing that I think is very helpful for us and for you, that we understand quite a lot of things you need to do. We don't run our own botanic gardens, that's the only thing, but I run a garden. And we have a very tight kind of communication with the community. We constantly, have, like now last May, we had a user conference in Europe, in Leiden.
Yeah.
And
with the second time we had a European user conference. So we started with this idea last year, 2016 in Amsterdam, and this year in Leiden, both in the Netherlands. Which is easy. Amsterdam airport is also easy to access for other people coming from other countries. So that's why we chose to do it there, and because we have a user base there as well. So combining those things, but especially this year, it was really great because many users presented something that they were working on, or a way that they were using Iris, right up to the point that there was a moment where they didn't really have a clear idea of how to proceed further, and from that point onward, we started to discuss with the other users what would be the best way to approach the issue. So we're really trying to make a knowledge base in the user community. I'm very enthusiastic about that as a user, about these conferences. I hope we can keep on keep it up. Actually, next year it will be in Cambridge. We already have that set. But what's the date, Howard?
I think it's Friday the 17th of May in Cambridge, at Cambridge University. So we open also for people who are not users to join us, provided there is enough room. But anyway, yeah. Rana, maybe you can come up here so we can. By the way, we will film this. So when we go through examples later in the session, we'll put the whole session on YouTube. So you could. We have a trial version of our software that you can get from me today or down at the exhibit. So you can try the things we're doing later on today on your own. So quickly, many gardens have this setup where you have one record keeper and you have your plant records. And people have to talk to this person to get information about your plant records. You have to, it becomes very much, it quickly becomes very inaccessible for the rest of the institution. So what with Iris, Iris is more than just plant records. It's, we call it a collection management system. It does more than just keeping track of what plants you have and where they came from. And we will show you a bit of that today, hopefully. In addition to the one person, the record keeper, we think it's important that the whole institution can access the data and also be able to capture data for you. That cuts down the cost and improves the quality of the data if you can distribute or delegate that kind of work. So we designed the software so that it's easier for you to do that, both from a usability perspective, but also from access control perspective. So in addition to handling living plant material, Iris is also designed to handle preserved material, and any type of material is actually sort of generic in that respect. Image handling, we put a lot of effort into handling images. There's a lot of, we have a few articles, there's an article on our blog about this where we work together with Smithsonian because they have a huge collection of artifacts, but also some significant plant collections. And they use their digital asset management system to integrate with Iris. Or you can have the other, more basic thing that you just store your images directly in the database. It's very flexible. I'll show you a bit later on how that works. Mapping. So what we've done here is Iris has integrated mapping, and we've taken away the complexity of GIS. So anyway, has anybody tried to use any kind of GIS software here? Yeah? And did you find it enjoyable or easy or difficult or?
Well, I think it's valuable because you can link databases
Yeah.
It's the geographical information. But of course you need to be a bit familiar with the system.
Exactly, and that's a really good point. I mean, some of these tools are extremely powerful and very useful, but also has a steep learning curve if you're going to use it sort of efficiently. So what we do here is that well, I'll show you, and then just what you need in a garden. We're trying to put that in here. But we also link up, we have a collaboration with Esri, so you can export your data into the Esri platform and do more advanced analysis of your data if you want to. We also have a data import module that is very useful when you need it. So you can import spreadsheets of all kinds of data, taxonomy, accessions, locality information when you've been out collecting in the wild, images. Yeah, it's a lot of, and very powerful. And we also have a handheld solution, so you can go out in the field and collect data. And finally, we also have two websites, one for visitors, so visitors can see your collection online. This works on a smartphone or on a desktop. And then for those who have seed catalogs, which they then collect and share with their visitors or other gardens, that can also be published online, so you get seed orders coming electronically. A lot of gardens sort of discourage or give up with an index seminar because of the effort, the time it takes. With this setup, you reduce the cost of time by publishing it electronically, getting orders coming in electronically. So you reduce the amount of hours you spend managing that work in the garden.
So I'd like to comment a little bit on the import module. I use it myself a lot if I have a bunch of data, a large amount of accessions, for instance, to a plant to accession. I like to use the import module because the flat Excel file gives me the overview that I need to make sure that every plant has the same type of information. So if I would be working in the software and go from one accession to the other, and then filling out the different fields, in comparison to that, working in an Excel file, making sure that every field is filled out and then imported, sort of make sure that the whole bunch of new accessions has the same data quality. So that's what I use it for. It's not just efficiency, but also, the overview.
Yeah, just another spin-off on that. I remember Martin Smith in Stellenbosch in South Africa. He got some material from another garden that was well collected. He didn't get a lot of information, but he accessioned the material and then exported and sent the spreadsheet back to the people who sent in the plants and said, can you fill in the rest? Because he knew that they had it. And then he got it back and then imported it back in again. So it's sort of one of those uses we didn't think of. It's great fun. So as far as we know, Iris is probably the most comprehensive solution for botanic gardens today in terms of what we offer of features. We also have, on top of all this, we also have some tools you can download. There is an Excel spreadsheet plugin you can download. That's free for anybody. It has a feature to split a scientific name into genus species. You might want to try that out. No, yeah, it does other things. There's a word plugin, and etc. etc. So, okay. Also, quickly, a bit about what we've done. So this is a professional tool. So when you see it the first time, it looks it has a lot of things going on there. So you might find it a bit sort of, what shall I say, threatening or a lot of things to get used to. But our mission is to make that people can be productive from day one. So we worked a lot on usability, so it is easy to use, even though it has a lot of features built in. And we see also that a lot of users become quite advanced relatively early, typically curators and record keepers. And I'll show you later on why things that seemingly are quite complicated are relatively easy to do, like searching for very specific data, for example. And then some users becomes true experts, and they do all kinds of things that we didn't even think of. And that's what we try to do in the platform, to make it, to have really advanced features that are hidden, or not hidden, but are there for you when you need it. And we're going to show you a few things today about how data can be managed or manipulated in an efficient manner.
So what I do, if I have new people using the software, or people who only use a small part of the software, I use the different access levels that are provided in Iris. So normally, as a sort of administrator, you would have how many options? Probably 50.
Yeah.
On the left. But if I have somebody who would work only in a specific area of the system, I would reduce this to 5 options on the left, from 50 to 5. So that not only protects a large portion of the database from people working in it and making different, doing different things, but it also helps people, new people, people who are new to the system or who only have a certain part of the system that they need to work with, to keep the overview. So it becomes much easier to navigate the system by sort of making it smaller for certain types of users. So that's customizable. So I could make any combination of options for this person and another combination of options for the other person. So that helps with the novice and the usability.
Yeah, I remember when you just got Iris. I remember you telling me the story that the director called Reinhard. He was on maternity leave, and she wanted some data from Reinhard from the plant collection. Yeah. And you, over the phone, helped the director to install Iris and run the report. Yeah. And then she managed to do it without any training at all. Yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully, you'll see why in minutes or later on in the session here. I brought up this is. So we're not just saying it's useful. There's someone that's done a study on this, which is was very good for us. Anyway, so this was Emily Diedrich. She did research at Cornell on the study of current plant record practices, challenges, and solutions for historic gardens, and they did satisfactory. So this is how user satisfaction within the different types of system people use, and we scored very well. It's very good score. This is a combination of IrisBG, Excel, AccessBG base, FileMaker Pro. It's available on our website if you want to see the paper about this. So, yeah. Quickly, terminology. Iris has been designed to handle multiple collection sites in one system. For those who don't need it, it's not really interesting, but if you need it, it is extremely important. Our most, what should we say, the largest collection we have now is, I suppose, English Heritage, which use Iris for 407 parks or historic, 12 historic gardens, and the rest are sort of more like historic parks, etc. So that makes it very flexible. So each collection is very separated with the accessioning and access control, etc. And then I assume everybody is familiar with the term accessions here. With the localities, in Iris that means areas in the wild or a place, a location in the wild. That's called localities. And then for each accession we have items, so that is any type of plant material. We called it items. It's very generic, unfortunately, but we can't come up with a better name. So an accession can have no items or one or many. And each item is found in one location in the garden. So that's a bed, or it could be a drawer, or a refrigerator in the seed store. Camera that only takes 20 minutes at a time, so we need to have a film director managing that. Now, this is important. So for each accession has to be related to a taxa, and each taxa has one accepted name, and then may have several synonyms. So that's the structure. So the important thing here is that if you make changes in the taxa, if you reorganize the taxa and say that now this name is no longer an accepted name, or etc., that does not affect the accessions. Well, it affects it, but you haven't re-identified the plants. Only the accepted name will change. We're going to show you a few things related to that later today. So that's important distinction. If you re-identify the plant, you change the taxa here. But if you make changes in the taxonomy, then that doesn't necessarily, you don't need re-identify the plant. Okay.
Harper, just while we're talking about accessions there,
yeah?
Items, I presume, can mean a living plant or herbarium specimen. So presumably you can cope with say, having a living plant in the garden and then a herbarium specimen of that accessions. Is that through qualifiers or something similar?
Yeah, exactly. So each item will have a qualifier. So it will have its unique number,
Right.
and that item can then be either a plant, it could be a herbarium voucher, it could be a DNA extract.
So actually, the item is another record almost.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a record. So the accession is the information that collects all the the record that collects all the information on provenance and how the plant was collected and identification and blah blah blah. And then under that is another record on another level, which is the item, which can also collect information, for instance, on what happened, if it died, if it planted.
It will be clear when we show, for example. The other thing I want to say is that some gardens also decide to categorize their living material. I've seen some gardens who take their bonsai collection as a separate type because it has a very different life cycle. I've also seen, I think Cambridge, they've decided to use all the propagation as a separate type of material because it's also handled slightly differently. So it's sort of very, very flexible in that respect.
I like to think of the difference between accession and items so that accession is the sort of the theoretical part of your plant and the item is the physical part of your collection.
Yeah, that's good. Here's some definitions. So yeah, that's not so important in this session, but usually an accession is same biological material. Some gardens even accession, if you get some display plants from the same nursery that are presumed to be the same age, you might accession them together. But usually it is the same biological material. Yes?
So for herbarium specimens, there is no accession number.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's only an item number, or how?
It's a combination of the accession number and the item number together, which gives you the number for that voucher. So what Tim said, the qualifier at the end will give you the full number. I'll show you later in a few minutes, or then you will see.
Basically, you could collect a plant in the wild and take seeds, and you make from the flowering plant or the fruiting plant, you make an herbarium voucher, store it as an herbarium sheet. The seeds, you take the seeds, you plant them, you grow them in the garden. They're both the same accession, so your collection information is the same. But you have two records under this, of which one is an herbarium and one is a plant.
Yeah, but I mean, if you don't collect living material at the same time, so if you only have herbarium.
Yep. Yeah. That's fine. Then you will just have an accession with one herbarium voucher.
Then you will have another accession for the living plant. Is that what you mean?
No, not necessarily.
No.
Just purely herbarium vouchers.
Just herbarium, not linked to living plants.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So you have no really, it's not called accession number. Normally you identify herbarium specimen with the author and author number.
Yeah.
So that's not really.
Okay.
Well, you could, just to clarify, some gardens, if you have a large herbarium with no reference to any living collection, you would typically then set this up as a separate collection site. And then you can have typically an accession number that is more normal to an herbarium, where you just have a long running number, for example. So in the trial version, if you get that, you will see that there's a botanic garden and there's a separate herbarium altogether, where there's just vouchers, no living material.
Yeah.
So you're right. If you have a lot of herbariums that are related to the living collection, you typically would put those vouchers in the same collection site. Whereas if it's a big herbarium with no reference to a living collection, then it's separate. And
And I even have a third case.
Yes.
If we have a large domain and there are living plants there that are not cultivated, they have no accession numbers, only some of them.
Yeah.
So can you then enter them?
You can
to give them an identifier. So is that on the level of accession or is that on the level of items?
It is definitely, you have to accession everything, but what you could do is you could introduce an accession series, maybe like 1,000 or something, for all those, because that is one approach, but they need to have an accession. That is a requirement.
They cannot have an item without having an accession.
Oh, quickly also, this is, I mean, I'm sure you all know this, but if you work on the spreadsheet, for example, and you have like 10,000 accessions there, and that's typically a name-centric approach where all the scientific names will be listed down there, and if you're going to manage these names, it's very difficult. Iris is taxon-centric, and here's a very good example, leopard lily, and the names changes that we've had. These are just a small example of the names that, and some of these names have been accepted or considered to be the right name for leopard lily. And if you've used Iris then for 20 years, follow this trend. Iris can then manage all these changes for you. But at this point, Iris domestica is the accepted name, and this is sort of then the taxon for all those names. And you can decide, you can disagree. If I know a lot of Americans prefer to use Balamcandra chinesis as the accepted name. And you can do that. Iris doesn't enforce any sort of right or wrong kind of nomenclature in that respect. Okay, so now we're going to do a bit of, show you a bit of the software. So today, as I say, I will use the trial version for Iris. I just wonder if this is, I'm just going to see if this, maybe I need to change the screen size a bit. Can you see this, or is it okay? I'll try to zoom in a bit. So as I mentioned earlier, Iris is, there's a website for visitors, there's mobile, so this is a desktop program, where most of the data management will happen. And when you start it, you get all these things here. I'm running this as an administrator, so I get a lot of options. And if I want to work on the taxonomy, I just click here to go into the taxonomy. And then I might want to run some reports, like that. And for those of you who installed the trial version, I will also, if I go back here, it remembers where I've been. And then on the options, you can switch on large or small toolbar. So when you get it installed, it will look like this. I would advise you to do a switch to large toolbar, so it's a bit easier when you're a newcomer. And there's also on window here, you can do full screen. So you want to be disturbed by Facebook updates and other things. So now we're completely immersed into our plant records. Okay, so that's how navigation is very straightforward. You have other features down here. That is typically sort of administrative features. Yeah, and I'm just going to use it like that, I think. So first, I'm going to just show you how to search for data. And so typically, the accession screen is where you are spend most of the time. That's quite natural. And what we've done here, as you can see, there's quite a lot to absorb the first time you go in here. You have determination up here, locality, origin, but this is something you get used to reasonably quickly after you've used it a bit. And the nice thing with Iris is that the screen, it's a bit unusual, but the screen can be used for data entry and search. So I can go in here now and for example, search for all my rhododendrons by just typing rod like this. Now it was capitalized, but that doesn't matter. And then I can just click enter. And then I get all my rhododendrons. Very easy, and you see here on the bottom, I get sort of nice information like there's 19 of them, 8 different countries of origin, 6 different taxa. So it's sort of, and I can open this number 8 here and have a look at that. Then I get all the details of this particular accession. I immediately see that there are 2 plants or 2 items and 2 images. So you can really get a nice little overview straight away. And then I can navigate through this list of these 19 rhododendrons, one after the other, by using this. So it's a very nice way to, maybe you want to look at all the pictures of a group of plants, or you want to just, I don't know. It's very nice. And you can jump back to the list and go and maybe you want to sort it by country, for example, and then only look at the ones collected in Norway. So very, very sort of flexible and workflow-wise, very easy to deal with. And the search can be quite intelligent. If I want to look for rhododendron tomatosa, I can just type rod tom, and it will understand that's what I'm trying to do. And then we get all the 5 rhododendron tomatosa. Obviously, you might want to do something more advanced. You might want to find all my wild collected rhododendrons from 1990 to 2010. And then you see quickly that this kind of search is a bit more restrained. There's a limit to what you can do with a screen search. And that's why we made what is called advanced search, which at first looks a bit daunting. So you get a lot of different groups here: accession, item, taxon. So if you want to search by taxon name, you will then expand this part. And then let's say I wanted to do wild collected rhododendrons from 1990 to 2010. Then I can go here, I do accession year, and you see here now I can do all kinds of tweaks between greater than, etc. So 1990, 2010, and then we go down further. We want wild collected. Some of these terms might be a bit, you might not be sure about all of them, but when you've used the system for a bit, you run the reports and you'll get familiar with the. I'm going to do in list, so just to give it a bit more sophistication here. Wild and garden. And then taxon name, rhododendrons. So, as you can see here already, you can do very advanced things. Here we go, wild collected rhododendrons between 1990 and 2010. And I could go back and say, I want all of them, but I also want only the ones that has an image. So there are a lot of possibilities. Just one. So then you get it straight up. So, and the nice thing here with this advanced search is the same thing we do in the report, same kind of search functionality. Okay. Here's the examples, great. Okay, so now I'm just going to, so that's search for you for accessions, the same kind of capability you'll find in the taxa screen and a few other screens. So in Iris there's, I don't know how many screens, but we try to, or we've been quite strict on following the same kind of layout so that when you've learned to do it in one screen, you will be able to do it in the others. There are 3 types of screens in Iris, and I'm going to show you them very quickly just to give you an idea. There is what we call the list screen, which doesn't require any search because the data is very small. One example we can do here, which also illustrates the flexibility of Iris, is to go down. This is typically a screen that only managers will go into. So that's called item status or plant status when you're dealing with plants. So in Iris, we've done it. It's so that when here, this is with the trial version, you get one for planted, one for moved, one for divided, etc. And you can manage this and create all your different types of combinations that is suitable for you. So maybe you want to monitor or keep track of how many plants that have been killed or died, natural cause, for example. Here we only say it's dead, so then you wouldn't need to introduce a new status which says dead natural cause. And I can do that just to illustrate. So easy enough, I can just change this to dead natural cause. If I do that now, you see here, that means the red means that it's dead, and you have existing means that it's alive. So if I do that now, of course all those accessions I have that now are dead are now suddenly dead natural cause. So that's not probably very good. So what I should be doing actually is, I should actually introduce 2 new ones. And then I just click the green plus on the top here and say PXN, for example, dead natural cause, like that. I'm just going to put the sort order is telling me where it's listed when users select from the list. And then I'm going to add another one for dead horticultural cause. bed. So these codes you see here, they're just for if you want to run big reports and you may know, and you will have a lot of information. Some people prefer to use just codes because you get familiar with them. And they have a sort of a logical structure here, sort of PX is sort of dead of some sort. So these codes you can change them retrospectively to whatever you want. That goes throughout the system. It's not, many systems might have this sort of code where when you've used them, you can't change them. These are flexible. So now we have introduced two new types of dead. Very simple. Another type of screen is, and I wanted to say also, if I wanted to say, okay, I want to get rid of this, we don't want to use this anymore, and I click delete, the system is designed to stop you from making such mistakes. If there are 17,000 dead plants, suddenly they disappear. No, they won't. The software is designed to stop all that. So yeah. I was going to use the term idiot-proof, but.
Try that out?
Well, I would like to say with the trial version, because we're running on a very lightweight database on the trial version, so it's easy to install. That doesn't have built-in integrity control. Yeah. So I'm not going to try it. It might actually allow me to delete.
So what happens in the what do you experience in the real
you get an error message.
An error message.
Yeah.
That just doesn't allow you to do it.
Yeah. You will be allowed to, when you delete and click save, and you get an error message saying you can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go back to your records. If you really want to get rid of this status, you have to go and find all your records with those status, give them another status, so they disappear from your data set, and then you can delete it. That's typically how it.
Yeah, there are ways to tidy up your data. Typically, if you have old beds, for example, and you want to get rid of them completely, there are ways to do that. I'm not going to show that today, but you can do it, search on historic records and find all those and actually update those 19,000 plants that were in that bed and move them to somewhere else. You can do that, actually. So yeah, great. I'm just going to show you another type of screen where we're going to, under management, all your contacts, so that would be nurseries, etc. So here, this screen layout is a bit different, where you have details here on the right and the list here in the middle.
So I have here, for instance, my list of botanic gardens with whom I exchange seeds with the seed list. They're also in this list of contacts. So it's not so much. Yeah, you can also put in a person if you got a person, so it's all in the same list. So if I have gardens with whom I exchange seeds through IrisBG, I use one of the tags here and say IrisBG exchange partner or something, and then I can select all of the gardens that have this tag and have an overview of the exchange partners. So that's how you can use one contact list for different purposes.
Yeah, and the search here is the same as in the accession screen. If I want to now change some information on Devonian Botanic Garden, I can clear the screen, that right-hand side, and then search for Devonian by clicking DAV and then search. And I found it here straight away.
It's changed its name now.
Yeah, it has changed its name. I can change the name as well. It's now University of Alberta Botanic Garden. So, and the reference person, yeah, she now works at UBC. So this is incorrect, but just. So you see how easy it is to find and change things.
So eventually you use these contacts in your accession to say where you obtained the plant from.
Yeah. And down here, when I make changes, my initials, I've logged in as admin, which is not you shouldn't do that. So sorry for that. So all users should have their own credentials, and then you can see who the last person who made the changes for this particular record.
Yeah, we're using that quite often in the garden. If we run into something that where somebody sees something in a database, one of my colleagues or me, and wondering, oh, what happened here? You know, we're going back to these stamps, time and person stamps, and and discuss what happened and why this is done in a certain way, so we can solve the problem. Yeah.
Does it keep a history of changes or just the last one?
It depends on the record. Most of these kind of records, we only keep the last one. There is built-in. I'll show you a bit later, and I'll remind myself that I'll see. Yeah, it's. Yep.
We have been looking at the. We tried to find the history of changes, and we did find them. But I think there was an item, probably an item.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant. But I'll show you when we get to that point. Another thing I want to show you here, which is sort of a typical advanced feature that is a great savior when you need it. So in the trial database, if I go down here, and you will see that we have 2 entries of Xi'an Botanic Garden. And that's classic. Every database gets duplicates. It's sort of impossible to avoid almost. And of course, now I have like 39 accessions on the one and 11 on the other or something. So the nice thing here in Iris is that if I want to, I look at both of these and I think this one is better. So then I can just delete this one. And then the software will say, oh, you have accessions or records related to this contact. What should we do with these? And of course, we want to transfer to the one that's correct. And then you click OK, and then it's done. Tidied up. And that goes for other things, like localities are typically also a place where you get multiple entries of the same thing, and then you can merge them in this manner. So very easy to do. Okay, so that's sort of the 2 types of screens that you see, in addition to then the accession screen, which is a large screen with a lot of information. So now we're just going to bring up an accession and make a few changes there, so you get to see how that's done. So we're going to look at the accession 2011-4, and then we're going to change the contact and also change the status, and then we get the history. Then we'll see how that works. So going back to the accession screen, I'm going to make this a bit more compact. So that accession number was 2011-4. So the system, I can just type 11-4 like this and click enter, and it brings it up. So typing in and here I wanted to change the contact to something else. So I can just bring that up, and Smithsonian Garden. Oh, that's not in my list. So I'm looking for it, I can't find it. The nice thing here with the accession screen is that you see here, maybe if I zoom in a bit, you see there's a small ellipsis button here, sort of 3 dots. If I click on that, I'll bring up the underlying contact list. So I bring up the record straight away, and I accidentally selected here, this university or something. So if I now want to record Smithsonian, I just clear the screen and then type in, give it a code. You don't have to do that, but I'm just doing it. Smithsonian Gardens. And you don't need to record more than this. And then I can do select and close, and then I'm back in the system, back in the accession. So the workflow here is very kind of snappy. You sort of, very easy to sort of jump forth and back. And you see here also, there's a yellow little lamp under material here. That means that there's some information hidden in that section, so I can expand and have a look at what that is if I want to. Yeah, it was recorded as C. Okay. So the other thing we want to do.
One of the things that I encountered when I transferred my old database to Iris is that was the accession numbering. I just think of it because you're talking about material type C. I had accession numbers that were built up of the year, and then number 0 or 1, and then a 3-digit running number. And it all had a meaning. So, the accession year is the accession year, that's fine. But then the digit meant whether it was a seed or not. where it came in as a seed or as a plant. So it started with 0, meant it came in as a plant. It meant that I could have maximum 1,000 new plants in my collection per year. And then if the number started with 1, going up to 9,999, it was entered the collection as a plant. But that meant that I could not have my accession numbers automatically numbered, because this was based on some kind of bit of information that I would have to enter manually. So I get rid of this system, this numbering system, so I have the running numbers from 0 to 10,000 almost, and storing the information of whether it came in as a seed, as a plant, in a separate field. So that's how it helps to organize your data. That's what I learned from this episode, that it helps to organize your data in a sort of logical way, makes it more flexible to use.
Yeah. Top tip, we've seen quite a number of creative accession numbering styles. I think the record is 7, a garden that had historically 7 different types of numbering regimes built up over the years. So new curator, new numbering regime with the So
if you have if you have numbering regimes that would have to fit in Iris, I also have this. I have 2 different numbering types. I'm talking about something else in the seed number, but I'm still using these old numbers because there's a place in the software where you can store that, so you can keep on using it.
Yeah.
It's just another number underneath it, so technically your numbering has changed, but you can still keep on working with the old numbering. You don't have to replace all your labels and stuff.
Yeah. So this trillium, it was in the seed, and now we've propagated them. We're going to move it out in the garden. And the way we do that, so you see here with the plant, you have the entry here and the details here on the right. There's only one plant here. We're going to put another one in as well, but first we're going to change this one. So this is, as we talked about, here you see the number 2011-4/1. So that's the qualifier 1. So you can have alphabetic qualifiers. This style, the numbering format is very flexible. You can have, there are many sort of options there how you set this up. So I'm just going to say, okay, we've planted it now. And here you see the list we had. Some of the colors don't come up here because I changed it. But for now, say planted. And then I can change the date to, maybe we say we did it in June. We can't remember exact date, so I'm just going to say June 17. And then you understand that it's 2017. And this is trillium, so it's a group of, so I'm just going to say group instead of writing 1, 2, or 11. And then when I save this now, you see what happens to the data I had. So when I click save, you will see that the historic, there's a plus sign here. So it creates a historic entry for me automatically. So the whole sort of history is built up as you go along, which is really great because you don't have to think, you don't have to make an effort. It just, as you make significant changes, it moves around. In addition to this, I also want to put on the map where it is. When you look at the, I forgot to say where it was actually. So it was going to be in the Grove, sorry, that was Magnolia Grove. I'm gonna, yeah. So now I'm gonna do it like that. Yep. Yeah, we'll just do it like this. So now when it's in Magnolia Grove, it will, the system will already know, when you set it up, you give center points to all your different beds. So if I don't want to make a more effort for this trillium, it will be found in this area. So if you then publish this online, you can straight away see, oh, all these trilliums, or that group of trilliums are found in Magnolia Grove. You don't know exactly where, but it's in that bed. If you then want to record exactly where it is, you can click here and then zoom in and drag the marker where it is in the bed. And I'm now using Google Satellite, but you can use all other types. If you have your own map, for example, here we have an ArcGIS map. So the coordinates are stored in Iris, and then that is, we're using geographic coordinates So these coordinates can be shared and used in any context. So that's very sort of, the data set is very flexible in that respect. Go back to Google Satellite. So if you're lucky enough to have a decent Google Earth satellite, that's quite nice. I remember one garden was very upset because they just had a party when the satellite went over. So they had all these gazebos. The whole garden was filled with big marquees and gazebos. And tried to ring Google to say, can this go over it once more? But maybe not. So I'm just saying this here. There we go. Now I got 2 entries because I made changes again, so I can delete the old one. So we just get it like that. I'm going to get one more plant here, just to say another one. Location in Northgate, planted today. Another group. So there's a lot of discussions, sort of when you split plants and when do you have one qualifier and not 2, etc. If they're in different locations, they have to be separated. If you get trees, long-lived trees and things, you usually give them a qualifier from the start, even though they might be planted very nearby each other. But that's a different topic. So now you see that has been given qualifier number 2 here. Yeah.
So now, okay, good. Can you expand the
Yeah.
number 1, item number 1?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go on the historic record, you see here is the stamp for this particular update. So the second. So the update from where it says 4th of
November.
November 2013.
Yeah, 11.
It was retrospectively created in 2013. Somebody was probably going through his or her books, saying, okay, it was what happened in seed store on that date, but that was entered into the system in 2013 by admin. Yeah. So that's why it's nicer to have a name there. So if you go to, so you can talk and ask this person what actually happened if you have questions. And then if you go to the current record, number 1. Oops, yeah. So here you see that it was entered today by the same guy and having this information. Yeah. So that's where historic updates can be found.
Can I ask, in that case, if you're importing a huge data set from another database, will that bring in the historic information, the different levels of sort of historic information from like a plant's record?
If that information is in the old system, and if it's a sort of, let's say, a rich data set, we will be able to get that data over. Yeah. So. So when it comes to transfer, talk to me afterwards. Yeah. But we've done 60, 70 different, or not different systems, but different transfers from most things now, I think. Not paper, that's the only thing we don't do. Okay, so now we made changes to one accession. Now we're going to just record a new one, because that's slightly different than just changing an existing one. And then we're going to also make some changes to the we're going to re-identify that plant, and we also then go one step further. We're also going to change the nomenclature, so make a new, accepted name, a synonym, etc. So going back. So recording a new accession, very easy, clear new. So you clear it to search for new things or just to start entering, so you could just go back to the details tab. And those yellow fields on top here, they're just summary fields and search fields. They're not for data entry. So typically new users might feel inclined to start typing in here, but that's not where you start. You start down here. And if I want to do retrospectively 2016, I would put the year, but if it's this year, we just don't need to do anything. And then I start typing. We have, I already forgot what it was. It was an aconitum compactum. And I just start typing here now, and you see that you get your list of taxa coming up straight away. And then I can say aconitum, and you see it's alphabetic. And the synonyms, so it's an alphabetic with accepted and synonyms together. I'm going to bring it a bit bigger so you can see it properly. and I can do smart, I can do echo and put space and then start typing compactum. And you see here now that compactum is a synonym of napellus. And the nice thing here now, if I select this one, it will bring up the accepted name, and it will bring up the determined, identified as compactum. So some gardens are you know, some synonyms have a bit more specific definition in terms of plant identification. So you can actually use that, you can actually get that expressed in the record as well, if you want to. Supplier here, contact was Chelsea Physic Garden. And I remember the code here is London, so I can just, so if you get a good code structure, you can be very efficient here. Provenance Garden. And I seem to not remember anything. Living material, 3 specimens. Oops. So I can record. I don't need to record much information here, but I'm going to do living, 3 plants. And you wonder, yeah, no, I'm not going to go into details. So
yeah, so here you enter number 3 on the accession level because it's 3 plants that you got originally.
Yeah.
So that's something else, and then recording the number of plants on item level, where you're actually recording what you have and where it is in your garden.
Some gardens won't introduce items till they take it out of the nursery, for example. So that gives you that flexibility. Or if you get seeds, you may not want to create items either. So you can just say if it's seed and you got you know, so many seeds or out. Sorry about that one. Yeah. So we have 2 plants in the nursery and 1 in the rock garden. I'm flipping, so planting, nursery 1 actually, nursery 1. So I'm going to use the word inspected here because we haven't even planted. Inventory might be a better one. So I'm just going to do June 17, 1. So here's a question, should we put 2 here because there are 2 in the same? I'm going to put 1 for each, just 2. Because we're planning to put them out in different parts of the garden later on. And then 1 in Rock Garden 55. Planted. And June 17, 1. And then I'm going to give it the map location. Because I know where it went. It was there. Select and close. And I'm going to put an image for it as well. Just going here. For photo, just click on the green plus button here. I know this is not an aconitum, it's a door, it doesn't matter for this. So this is a picture, and I'm going to rank this as number 1. So that's the most important picture we have. Ranking is used in several places, in common names, in themes, and in several places, and it's really handy. For common names, it's really important because you may typically want 1 common name on the label, for example. So there's several things you can do with the common names in mail merge, etc. And rank number 1 for image will then be the first one that go online. Everything ranked from 10 and higher will not go online at all. So you may have a picture of something, a plant with an illness or something. So now I'm finished. So you see, accessioning can be very swift. So many of our gardens, they accession annuals and everything because A, you want to share it with visitors, and B, the cost, the time and effort it takes to put it in is really low. So
myself, I've taken before I used Iris, I had a software which was very difficult to understand. So to really get on a certain level of using it, but at some point with Iris it started to also accession everything. In fact, as soon as something was accessioned, everything became easier. So you didn't really go into that now yet of the system, but the efficiency of whatever you want to know about your plants, about your accession, what you have and where it is. If you publish it, if you want to make a label. So you first start with accessioning, and then there's a whole sort of range of possibilities opening up. So accessioning is actually a really worthwhile first step for not only in terms of having a documented scientific collection, but also having a collection and information attached to it that you want to use to manage your collection. It becomes a very practical decision, and what is a motivation to accession.
Yeah. Another example here now. Let's say we got a cognitive specialist visiting us, and he looks at this and thinks, no, this is not an Apelles, this is an Accession. So you go to record that information. It's re-identified. Very simple. You just go in here and change the name. Oops. Cognitum Accession. And this turns out also to be a synonym of subspecies septentrionale. Doesn't matter. And here I can say it happened today. It came 2 hours after we accessioned it. So and we can type in. So the identifier was identification was done by Reinhard Havinger. And here's a nice little feature with Iris. All these drop-down lists you manage yourself. Some of them are managed down here under maintenance, so that you have strict control over what the people are actually doing, like plant status. You don't want people to just use whatever you like. You want to have a very clear structure so you can run reports. Some lists, like this one, person who is identifying, that you can have one person visiting the garden for 1 day, and you don't want to go in there and add it in the definition. So this is like a self-populated list. You get the list of all the values that have been used previously in the system, but you can enter new ones straight away. So I can just type in straight away here. And that goes for other places like distribution, for example, where you have a very kind of unstructured data. So I'm going to say determination by taxonomies. And here we can put in library references, so it's very rich. And when I save this now, down here you get automatically again then history for identification constructed for you. So now you saw today, this morning it was compactum, and then later today it was Accession. So that's how re-identification works, or determination. Now let's say later today we got reports that this is no longer an accepted name. It's a busy day at the office, and the nice thing here then, you can go in to work on the taxa as you saw with the contact. I can just click here and bring the taxa screen up and look at the taxon. Sorry. What is the storyline here? This name is now a synonym of Aconitum leucococtum. This is fictitious. So how do you deal with that? You see here that Aconitum leucococtum is already a taxon in this database. So the way you do that in Iris is that if an accepted name becomes a synonym, you use the expire button. We call it delete, but nobody dared to click it. So we need to come up with another name. So expire is the name. So if I click that, I'll get the information that this name is in use. There are accessions related to it. If you had a misspelling and you have no accessions, you can get rid of it completely. So I can then say I want to move it over to leucococtum. If I had misspelling and there was another correct spelling, you would use delete. So you got rid of the one and tidy up the other. And if I click OK now, you see those two taxa are now merged into one. And we got accidentally then two common names that are the same, for example. So I need to fix that.
So that means that the Norwegian local taxonomy was already ahead of the scientist.
Well, common names are usually same for similar. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. So that's how you handle the nomenclature when you have accepted names become synonyms of something else. But the opposite happens as well. That you have, let's say, that this one becomes an accepted name. So Aconitum septibonale is now suddenly an accepted name. Then you can use this button here to transfer it out as a separate taxon. And just to create new taxon. Or, so all these all the combinations that are possible. And you see, these are just hidden slightly away so that people are not confused by it, but those who are sort of in charge of managing the taxonomy can do that with reasonable ease. So I'm just going to create a new taxon for septibonale. And that's now a new one outside. One tip, so Iris also protects you from creating duplicate taxons. So you will be, you will get an error message if you create a new one that has the same name. A tip here is to use authors, because if you don't use authors, you won't allow to, sometimes a name is a synonym in one case and an accepted name in another, but then they are usually with different authors. So just a small tip. And I'm just going to bring this, so I'm just going to, yeah, I'm just going to clear it to show you how this looks now, if I bring this up again. 71. So you now see that we have we didn't change anything, we didn't re-identify the plant, so it was identified today as still as Accession. And then the accepted name is now suddenly concocted because we changed the nomenclature. Are you with me? It was a crazy example, but it sort of illustrates all the.
Well, it's what happens. So it's something that you have to be aware of. That if you have accessions under a certain taxon, and you take one of the synonyms out and establish it as an accepted name,
yeah.
And this is what can happen. So
yeah. One comment on that as well. When we transfer data for gardens, we can upgrade your taxonomy to APG3 if you want to. That means basically mapping all your genera to the APG3 families. Hopefully APG4 when we get a good data set that we can use for that, but at the moment APG3.
So how would you go about it? Because if you see this, if you get this, how would you solve it? Because
no, it's just the genera giving the correct APG3 families. We wouldn't do anything like this.
The example here, where the identification is not following your taxonomic updates.
Well, the genus is the same. We don't change the.
Yeah, but you have in the example. If you could pull up the example.
Well, we're running a bit time-wise, so I think we'll take a discussion afterwards. Sorry. I'm going to. We have a bit more advanced example here. What I'm going to show you, it's a new taxon. Yeah, we'll do that one because it's. So I'm going to do that. Fragmentidium bosser. So now we did a new accession with an existing taxon. Obviously, you get new taxa coming in or new plants that you haven't had before. So the way that works is that you typically clear the screen and you try to find the plant here by looking. So I've got a Fragmentidium here, an orchid, and I can't find it. And then you click here on the screen here, and then you clear it to create a new taxon, just like you did with the contacts and Smithsonian. Same workflow for the whole thing. And then you start finding the genus. And if you don't have the genus, you can then click one step further and work on what we call taxonomic groups, which are all the taxa, higher ranking taxa. So here's the Fragmentidium. And we had a Boyceranum here. Now, if I misspell this, that's quite, people are not perfect. So if I say Boyceranus instead, I can click save. I mean, there's no spell check here, so the system will accept this, and you can insist on using your mistakes or whatever. That's fine. But what we do have here is web search that helps you to check names against different web resources. Here we have, so there are a number of other good suggestions on our forum. You can configure Iris to search for different websites. If I do the plant list here now, let's see if we get something. And you see, I got 91 names, so I didn't get an exact match. So that's sort of some bells would ring here. Oh, I may have not spelled it right. And then I can look down here to see, and I see, oh, it's called, I see, maybe I misspelled it wrong, I don't know. So that's the accepted name, and I also see that I get the author here as well. So I'm going to just copy that name and go back and correct the chat spelling. And then I can also check it with IPNI, the International Plant Name Index, here. And here I get, my screen size is a bit weird, so it does, hold on. So that's the one with the correct author from, so I'm relying on the plant list's author. So sometimes IPNI have several names, because it's like a collection of all the names published. So I'm bringing this one in, and then I get the publication information straight into IRIS. And I'm going to say name source here, plant list, oops. The plant list. And I'm also going to do one web search again, just to see that it works now, just for fun. Yeah, no, you see now I didn't get it. Oh, was it because I hadn't saved it yet? Yeah, let's try again. Yeah, now it come up. We get all three of them. Okay, fine. I can put this as a reference here. So remember, it's the last web search. I get that as a reference on our on this page here. And if I rank this again, I can say rank 1. So that goes online to visitors as well. So there's a lot of kind of capability on how you manage your data and how you share it online as well, with ranking and with restrictions, etc. I'm going to show you restrictions as well straight away since I'm talking about it. So the restrictions is really handy when you work with material that it has some sort of restrictions from you know, maybe it has you have a material transfer agreement, you're not allowed to propagate from it or something like that. Here I'm going to say every time we get this Fragmipedium into our garden, we don't want to talk about it, we don't want to share it with anybody, we don't want to put it online or anything. And that can be put on the taxon, on the accession, or down all the way on the level of the plant. It gives you a lot of flexibility. And you can attach permits, etc. to the accession as well. So I'm going to go and say, we say a combination here, we say publish without coordinates. So we're going to say that we have it, but we're not showing where it is in the garden. Save. Select the close, here we go. And then I'm going to finish the accession quickly here by saying provenance wild collected. Like that. When it comes to localities, I'm going to quickly do one in where's the locality? Ecuador, Loja, thank you. So, Loja, and then locality, oops, by the river, something. So locality information is very useful when you have it, 1500 meters between 1200. And then again here with mapping, you get sort of, see that typically also mapping with, you have mapping with plants collected in your, that people are familiar with. They may not have good GPS, and then they can just use feature and transfer all the way down to the,
you can really zoom in very far, as far as you can zoom in Google Images.
Yeah. Oops, that's a test database there. So, and then you see the locality information comes up here, because it's very important when it's well collected to get that kind of information.
Is there someone to record things like habitat, substrate, hydrology?
Yeah, that is then recorded on the accession itself, because it may vary from individuals. So some, if you go back now to the locality, you have you can write comments here and a descriptive text about the locality, but then the habitat, etc., goes on the individual accessions. And typically then when you have wild collected material, you typically have several plants from the same spot. Then you have the nice little repeat button up here, which gives me a copy of the same accession, which you then can change the, maybe it's a different orchid here, so we can do Fragmipedium Besseia or something. And now I got a new accession. So
Yeah, so this is the same idea where I have where I like to use the import function to make sure that all your records have the same.
And just to say one thing more, you can also, typically you accession 20 plants and you think, oh, I forgot to record the locality for all of these. Then you would do something like, let's say that it was the same for all the ones we've done today, these 3 records. I search for all the ones for accession year 2017. You can select all of them and click update multiple. And then I can assign the same information to all of those in one go. So a lot of those kind of capabilities are sprinkled out through the system. Okay. So reports, you already saw how we search for things, and I'm just going to show you very quickly here. Under report section, if I want to do reports, you decide what type of data you want. You want accessions, do you want plants, do you want taxa? So I want to run an items data report, so that gives me just plants. I can do all the living plants. It automatically say all the ones that are existing. And then accessions, accession year 2010. And then you can save these filters as well, so you can keep them. Nice thing with that, most of the reports will produce a spreadsheet, so you don't have to, and then you can easily share that with others, you can manipulate it further. Very handy. Some reports produce Word documents, and you can design and rechange them, put your logos in it. So, and the same goes for the labels. So that's reports. Same sort of instruction you gave to your director.
Yeah.
Maps work on the same principle. And I'm just going to show you a different type of map here, because I'm going to bring up a data set from Ohio, because it's a bit more interesting in terms of what type of. So this is water reference garden in North America. The doors are written. They have. We're going to do maps from their plant collection. So if I want to do, let's say, give me all the acers, for example, I can go down here to do genus, begins with acer, and then click. So this is really nice when you want to work on the plant collection from a map-centric point of view, instead of having a list. So I can then bring this up in full screen, and I can zoom into an area here. And you see they use a nice drawn ArcGIS map lying underneath. You see the map markers coming up here. And I can then put on labels. Oops. Let's see, I'm just kept on dragging it a bit far away here. So we need text. And then I can reposition these labels. And then you can click on the markers to open the underlying records. So I talked to several, I think there was the one in Guelph Arboretum, who never search for things. He just brings up the whole collection, looks at the map, and walks through the garden. And oh, that's dead, and you can open up and change the information on the individual records from the image or the map itself. The reason I brought this map up is also another cool thing we had a discussion about. He's going to plant some new acers, and he wants to make sure he plants them in an area where there have been no acers, just because of diseases. So then we have this item history map. So I'm now going to bring up a map and see where all the acers have been for the last 30 years. So I can say here anything from 1987 till today, and then taxon begins with acer, and I'll bring that up. Here we go. Here's the whole garden, or arboretum. It's a big. I'm going to zoom out a bit so you get a bit more feel of the size of this place. That's why it's taking a bit of time. It's I don't know how many acres we got here. Quite a lot. And the nice thing with them, they also have a map of soil types. So I can bring up that map instead. So you can then not only see where we haven't had ACEs, but we want to avoid clay, for example. So it's quite a nice kind of way to use your data to sort of carry out light analysis and make decisions based on that. Yeah?
Can you only use ArcGIS? Products from Esri are also quantum GIS or others, GraphGIS?
That's very good. So the underlying map here needs to be on a WMS server. So it could be any type of map technology lying in the background. So this has been designed on ArcGIS, but yeah, any WMS server. And that is, so you will find that a lot of, especially if you do work on localities and things like that, there's a lot of WMS servers for global maps with the sort of precipitation, all those kind of types of data sets available often nationally and also internationally.
So we've just had a map made of our garden in QGIS, and this is also technically, we're not there yet, but this is also technically possible to put in Iris, so that's what we're planning to do.
Yeah, it's in progress.
Sorry?
It's still in progress.
Yeah, the map is created, but we're still fiddling around with the georeferencing.
Yeah.
Because we have all the dots on the map already.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the georeferencing seems to be something a bit tricky. So even if we go to the cadastre, where they should have the ultimate reference, they have maps which are referenced in slightly different. So there may be half a meter off or something, which is relevant for the dotting of our collection.
Because of different projections.
Yeah, but this doesn't have anything to do with the technical possibility to have this QGIS map in Iris.
Okay, so we have a few minutes left, so I want to show you one thing that differentiate Iris from many other projects, I think, or systems, is the what is called events, which is like another layer on top of all your plant records. And the most important part is the tasks, which is a list-making function feature. So this can be used to make lists of taxa, accessions, plants or items, and locations. And you can use this list to cross it with other lists and search it, etc. So it has a great variety of uses. And I'm going to show you just one basic example here. Typically you can use it for general maintenance, pruning jobs, for example, or irrigation plans, or etc. But now I'm just going to show you an example where we have a rhododendron exhibit in the garden. So we got of drawings. I'm trying to keep to time, so bear with me. So this will then be a list of taxa. And then I'm bringing up the taxa screen to, oops, I'm clicking a bit wild here, sorry about that. So I'm going to search for all my rhododendrons. I'm just going to select a large group of these rhododendrons. It's a bit sort of, just to make sure. So it's, oh, not all of them. Hold on. Select and close, so we got 65 drawings. Okay, so now this list can be used. So then, of course, you have these drawings in our foyer, and you want this just to, oh, we have a few of these plants in our garden. Which are they? I can then go down to accessions and search for them there. I can make a report. I can create a map. I can also, I want to create a trail. So I'm going to straight in here and create a trail. Rhododendron exhibit. And entry is item. And then when I go into the accession screen to add these items to my trail, I can go to advanced search and use that, even though it's a list of taxa, to link with those plants that might be in my garden. So I know this might have been a bit sort of, it's a bit hard to hang on here now. But I just want to show this is really, really very powerful when you want to manage and play with your data.
This is probably the thing that saves me most time saving feature. So it's what it is it's just the way. I mean, you probably have lists of plants lying on your desk. These 5 plants, these 20 plants need to be done this, and they're usually not related by any logical qualifier on either accession or text level. So, but they're just a list of it because maybe it's a box of plants that somebody put there, and they have to be labeled or they have to be thrown out, or I don't know what. So it's these kind of lists of plants that are not logically related. You list them, and then you can access them on in different ways. You can update all the taxa at once by opening a list of accession on taxon level, or you label them all together, or you put them, you change the status from alive to dead altogether. So it's these kind of you're basically doing an inventory. You're building up an inventory list and working your way from there.
Yeah. Now I created a small tour with 3 plants to visit. Not a sort of fantastic thing, but you get the point. And this can then go online to your visitors. And I want to show you this as a fine thing. If you go to gardenexplorer.org, you will see the live sites we have. We have Minds with Rolf here. They are online, and Reinhardt is online. So they're very wonderful examples. The doors are North America, obviously. The Hortus and Minds here. And then the data they publish is very painless for you, I would say. Maybe I put words in your mouth here. But
What do you mean?
The effort you have to do to put it out there.
Oh yeah.
Just click a button and it just goes out.
Maybe you can go to our website and we can show a
Well, we're running over time now. I think in respect of your time, are everybody okay for 2 more minutes or? Okay, yeah. Some people, yeah, good. Then we'll do that. We go to the Hortus. Well, I can do that from. Let's see.
There. If you go to Roots.
Oh yeah, Roots. Sorry. Yeah.
That was in French.
I'll go to the English. So we have it in many languages. I want to interject also that the software supports data entry in multiple languages, which Minds has adopted, so they record their data in English and German. So that visitors not only get the website use, the buttons, but also the data is in the visitor's language, and that's really handy. It is a commitment because you need to type a bit of. So Ralph might comment on that. But do you find that a big commitment, or does it?
No, it's not so bad because it's mainly common names, which are important for visitors in other languages.
Yeah.
Well, names of localities in the garden, but it's not so much.
Yeah, there's a distribution and the description of the taxon that I sometimes want to write that in 2 languages. Yeah. Sorry, Reinhardt, you wanted English here and then tours.
If you select plant of harmonics, for instance.
Yeah. So this would then be in English if I had to do a language.
These are plants that were published in a catalogue from 1700 with nice plates. This is not something that I have stored systematically in the database. But what's more, I want to make there are about 300 plants maybe in this book. I want to make a selection of maximum 7 of those and create a tour. So I use the task function to make a list of the ones that I think are worth showing and plot it. It's automatically plotted on the map because each plant has a location already, and then I can publish it online. And people can walk along the plants and see what the plants that were depicted in 1700 really look like. So.
And you even had a nice. I remember you had a link to the shop to buy the poster.
Yeah, actually I should remove that because the shop is they took it out.
Well, the Hortus store. Yeah. So you see that those links are managed on the taxa screen and ranked according to how you want it to come here.
If you go up a little bit,
or to the
map.
To the map, yeah.
So you see that there are lines. So you have the option to add the line or not to add the line. You see that it would probably be a better idea not to add the line because it doesn't follow the paths. So
people are encouraged to walk into the
canal. My bed, they're probably following a tour that I've published online.
Okay, well, anyway, we've given you sort of a snapshot, I think, of Iris, and we try to sort of start slowly and go into some advanced stuff. There's more to it. But these are some of the cool things. There are more videos online where you can watch. We did one session in last week in Canada where we covered a lot of the advanced features. So that will be published probably next week online on YouTube. So look at that, because then we go really into the, well, what should I say, very nitty-gritty things. But I really thank you very much for coming. And I'll be here until Friday, and so will Margarita and Lorena. So if you have any questions or want to talk about more stuff, then please come and talk to us. Thank you very much.